Welcome to the Too Much Dip podcast. My name is Dave. I'm going to be hosting here. Joining me in studio, as always, Dylan Shivery.
Very happy to be here, Dave. Thanks for having me. Excited for today's show and our guest. Very, very cold day here in Austin, Texas.
Right, those two things are unrelated, but he's here.
Very, very cold day.
First, we got producer Randy over there.
Hi, Dave.
And of course, coming to us live from Wisconsin, it's KJ.
Good to see you, fellas. Happy to see that a good 40-degree difference between your day and mine justifies all of those shivers, but happy to be here.
40 degrees?
I think looking at -5 on the dashboard earlier, so yeah, it is actually cold here. But no precip, no snow on the ground, so it's just unnecessarily cold.
Okay. Well, hey, how about this? How about we heat it up with 247's own recruiting analyst, national recruiting analyst, Mike Roach.
What's up, fellas? I can also report it's cold in Denton County.
Ooh, I didn't know you were a Denton guy.
Any precipitation up that way?
No precip. We had that, last week or 2 weeks ago. So,
okay.
Just cold.
Mike's an old friend of the show. We've had him on many a time.
An old lump of coal.
He's just a good old fellow. We like having him on. We text with him sometimes. Mike, thank you for joining us. I know you and KJ go way back. Why don't you just tell us what you do? There's some new listeners listening. They don't know who you are. They want to know.
Yeah, KJ and I go way back to, what did we do? Which movie did we do, KJ?
I don't recall the movie, but it does stand as one of my most. Oh yeah, the program. Absolutely, that makes sense. It would be one of the more embarrassing moments of my podcast recording life, as I completely botched the audio. It was a one-sided recording.
Yeah, KJ and I met long ago. Did I don't even remember the name of your podcast at the time, but
that's okay. Partial recall. So loved by some.
I was going to say Total Recall, so I was close. We did a movie rewatch of the program, and he called me in because my expertise is in college football and high school football recruiting, most specifically. So I'm a national recruiting analyst for 247's Sports, overseeing this region, which includes Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, New Mexico, Oklahoma, and sometimes parts of southern Missouri.
Yeah, Mike's a guy who's very plugged into recruiting, as he just said, and I follow recruiting pretty closely as I'm a Texas fan, and sometimes I have to know the scoop on something or like who's leaning a certain way, so I'll fire a text at him. I feel guilty every time. I don't want that to be our entire relationship, so I'm just gonna like check in every now and then, like, hey man, how's it going? You know,
I don't think I've ever been like, I can't tell you, so I do trust you.
Yeah, I will not spill. I will not spill any information you give to me. It is very much appreciated.
I got to say, Mike, you were absolutely correct on your North Crowley calls. You were in on them very early.
Yeah, well, I used to live in Crowley, and literally watched that program bloom from like all those kids that won this year. Knew them when like they were 8th graders, and I would once a week go have lunch with the North Crowley head coach in his office, and you kind of see it coming. I remember seeing them at scrimmage this year, and I called somebody and was like, they're going to beat Duncanville in the playoffs. This is going to be Duncanville's kryptonite.
How long do you think that's going to last down there? Obviously, I feel like South Oak Cliff, some probably thought that was going to be a flash in the pan. You probably knew better because you saw it day in, day out. Obviously, Duncanville was built to last as far as long as Samples is there, and, you know, as long as it's in the Love Redbird area. But what about North Crowley? How long are we seeing this?
Program is definitely built to last. The biggest thing for them, and this is what was happening when these kids were 8th graders, was they stopped all their kids from going to Aledo. And finally, all that talent was kind of staying at home and playing in those areas. So it's there. I think their big challenge this year is like if you consider it like a pro team that won a Super Bowl on all rookie contracts and then all their contracts are expiring. Now they've got to like their quarterback, who's been their star for 4 years, is going on to North Texas, so they're going to have to replace him, and he's like a major piece of their success. I mean, they've got a lot of other pieces, but I'll be interested to see how they go forward.
They had a receiver that like broke all kinds of records or something, right? He just went off.
Yeah, Quentin Gibson, who as is mostly the case in my job, I find a kid early, I become a huge fan of him, and then the hype gets so much that I have to tamp it down to the point where I feel like I'm a hater. So like Quentin Gibson went nuts. Like I saw him at that scrimmage I mentioned, and he had a play that I had on video that ended up going like top 10 on Sports Center. And he's a phenomenal player, electric. He's just 5'8", 150 pounds, and so everybody was like, "How is this kid not a 5-star?" There's a lot of other things that go into the mix with that. Obviously, size is a big part for us. But I ended up having to get in these battles where I'm like, look, I love this kid, but you need to have like more realistic expectations for what he's going to be at the college level. But he's going to be in the spotlight because he's headed to Colorado.
Speaking of, we saw over the weekend. What was the game? Decorey and Moore was all over. Speaking of viral moments.
The Polynesian Bowl, which is the best all-star game we do. It's in Honolulu, and I fight with our West Coast guys because they get to go cover that one every year. And I just tell them like, hey, if one of y'all gets hit by a bus or something, I'm next up on the depth chart for the free trip to Honolulu in January.
Decorey quite good, it turns out.
Yeah, going to Oregon.
Unfortunately,
much to your, but there's still some time, Dylan.
What for the portal out? Is that what you're talking about?
I'm just messing with you. I'm just giving you false hope.
I'd say the kid just doesn't like Texas, and that's you just got to live with that. Unfortunately,
I don't think that was the case. I just think he just didn't like Texas as much as he liked Oregon.
Okay.
All
right. Plus, he's gonna have Quinn throwing him the ball up there. No, I've got
not touching that.
No, I'm kidding. I'm playing. I've got a Quinn take I'd like to shop, but it may be for later.
No, let's do it right now.
I think the Rams need to scoop Quinn, and I think he sits behind Stafford for like a year, maybe 2 more years. I think he works really well in that system.
Okay,
that's not a bad take, and I think more than anything, having seen Quinn since he was an 8th grader, he just needs to get healthy. I don't think he's been healthy since his junior year of high school. And I think it led to some of the stuff you saw this year. He's just never quite been 100%.
Let's talk Natty. That's tonight. Kind of snuck up on me. I felt a little over footballed this morning, and I was like, oh, damn, we got a big one tonight.
Yeah, it did kind of sneak up, or it feels like there hasn't been a whole lot of buzz around this game for whatever reason. I know the NFL playoffs have been pretty exciting. Maybe that's part of the reason why. Yeah, big ball game tonight.
What's that line looking like at the moment?
Per DraftKings, we're talking 8.5 points. The over/under is 40.5.
Okay, we can look at it this way. As far as like Mike, is there anybody playing tonight that you've been on? I know we've got a Round Rock guy. We've got the kid from Westlake, both on Notre Dame, right? Yeah. Westlake gets Notre Dame. Anybody that you've been on for a while, and what do you think's going down tonight?
Yeah, here's a hot take. When you say like we've been over footballed, I feel over sportsed. Maybe it's just me, but like, with college football, I'm a Bills fan, so I was like locked in last night. And then the Stars, I watch all 82 of those. So I feel like every night I have to like get ready for a game, and sometimes I want to break. But this has felt like zero buzz going into this, and I don't know if it's because there's not an SEC team. These two teams are, especially Ohio State, among the most talented rosters in the country, arguably the best. Ohio State's got a ton. They've obviously recruited Texas in a big way for a long time, and they've got a couple of kids. I don't think you're going to, you won't notice them a ton because a lot of them play up front on the offensive line. Donovan Jackson, who's a kid out of Houston that's probably going to be a 1st or 2nd round pick for them, who's one of the better offensive linemen I saw. Leonard Moore, who you mentioned from Round Rock, the defensive back for Notre Dame, is great. And then Jaden Greathouse kind of did what Jaden Greathouse does in that game, in that semifinal game, where he just, like, if you go back and remember when Westlake played Southlake in the state championship, I'm wrong. It's when they played Denton Geyer in the state championship. He went off and set like records, which that game is crazy because that game is like Eli Stowers, who's going to be a first day, second day pick at tight end now, was playing quarterback for Geyer, and he got hurt, and Jackson Arnold came into the game as a freshman, and looked completely lost, and just future college stars all over that game. But yeah, Greathouse is the guy for me that, especially like when we talk about NFL development and what are the traits, you don't look at him like that. He's not the fastest guy. He's kind of a tweener position wise, but man, he has a knack for making big plays in big games. And I think it's kind of going to be important for him to make one or two of those. Ohio State's as solid of a team as I've seen this year. It is, to me, hilarious that Michigan beating them has turned them into like this new unstoppable force. And
Yeah.
They really cranked it up a notch after that. So, I think there'll be some Texas guys to watch in this game for sure. Not to mention, I got to give a shout out to our rankings guys, because like Jeremiah Smith's incredible. And I think everybody was like, well, duh, you guys made him a 5-star. Of course he's a 5-star. It was the only time a network has made a receiver the number 1 overall player in the country. And we were, our director of scouting, Andrew Ivins, is based in Florida, had seen him from like freshman year on and was like, I'm convicted this is a generational, talent at receiver. And so far that's looked very good.
Yeah, the kid's a freak. This game for me just kind of obviously Notre Dame has been playing very good football. Feels just a game that Ohio State just kind of out-athlete Notre Dame. Like you said, their roster from top to bottom, we've been talking about this for weeks, just feels like it's just too strong talent-wise. And this is what I felt when they played Texas even. I think Texas had a roster that matched up fairly favorably to Ohio State, one of the few teams that could probably do so. But I don't know if Notre Dame just quite has the caliber of athlete that Ohio State does. And so it kind of, that line to me feels pretty spot on, I think.
Yeah, the total doesn't, right? Like,
it feels low, doesn't
that's
it?
odd. You're getting a 9-point game and you're keeping it under 40 is wild.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't bet enough to know what that means, but like to me, it seems like an easy over. Like Ohio State in the over seems like the play.
KJ, who you like more? I know you're a huge Riley Leonard guy. You're always texting me about him, but Riley Leonard or Will Howard, who you got?
I mean, I will say this is probably the worst quarterback-centric matchup. Like, maybe that's what's causing lack of buzz here. But you have a lot of attention. So I guess to answer your question directly, I'm still going to be pulling for the fight in Marcus Freeman's here for all obvious reasons. Having had a chance to go see Notre Dame in person against Florida State, it wasn't much competition. But like everything that they put on that day, all clear. Not having Sam Mills, their defensive lineman, obviously is a huge difference, but I don't think it's a 9-point difference. Maybe the line would be like a 4.5-point difference if they were still healthy. But Drayden Greathouse stood out in that game too. Like coming out of it, it's like they've got one really shifty, really electric guy who's going to make a play, a really solid running back, and a really sound team overall. I don't feel crazy or like too emotional saying like I think Notre Dame can hang in there. I think the stars are obviously aligned to say like you've got Jeremiah Smith, but then you look at the Texas game, as Dylan might have said, Ohio State did not run away with that game. They controlled like 2 or 3 series offensively. Kunshawn Judkins made a couple tremendous plays in the red zone, and their defense showed up in a handful of moments, but like in between that first and fourth quarter, like that game was there to be had. And I think that Notre Dame's one of those teams that will take advantage of that second and third quarter and then maybe not be the reason that they make themselves lose in the fourth. So I'm not saying it's going to be a runaway Notre Dame victory, but like I'm also not expecting it to be quarterback throws 2 pick sixes right out the gate and like everybody goes home. Like I don't think we'll see that.
I will say, I think Notre Dame is the better coach team. And I think that if it plays to the under, it favors Notre Dame.
Yeah.
The problem is, it's just like, do you have enough pieces to make the game-winning plays? Like Riley Leonard's fine, but not really a vertical threat. Not really gonna stress you out downfield. And like, I don't know, it feels like every game I watch, he gets a concussion. So I don't even know like where his head's at this point. But like, I do think that they're extremely well coached.
Sounds to me like Mike Roach just said Ryan Day on the hot seat.
I mean, I think there are Ohio State fans that, even if they win tonight, would tell you we need to fire Ryan Day because he hadn't beaten Michigan in 4 or 5 years or whatever it is. So I do think it's kind of a worst nightmare for the Ryan Day out faction.
And if they happen to lose tonight, it's going to be very loud from their fans. They're going to want to run his ass out of town tonight.
He does not appear to be one of those guys that's like ever going to leave until he has to. In any other scenario, he could have left for any NFL job had he wanted to. Obviously, it's Ohio State. Like, how much better you're going to get coaching gig wise. But if he was just saying like it's an untenable, ungrateful fan base, like he could have taken the New Orleans job. He'd call his agent today and have that job tomorrow if he wanted to. So, and then Marcus Freeman would take his job at Ohio State, I bet. But yeah, I think we're stuck seeing his beard in for quite some time. Who knows about Chip Kelly?
Here's a fun. My wife just discovered Marcus Freeman, and she had the same reaction most wives do when they discover Marcus Freeman.
He's a handsome
and
man.
Now, yeah, he's replaced Cliff Kingsbury for her, who she used to call Coach Cutie, as he's the new Coach Cutie.
Cliff Kingsbury looks like he hadn't slept, like had a good night of sleep in a long time. He's really puffy eyed every time I
grinding.
see him now.
He's in the NFC Championship.
He's always been grinding, though. He's been a football coach for how long now?
I know. Hey, what?
He's not like the sex symbol he was 5 years ago.
I know.
He didn't have the esthetician that he used to in Phoenix. He had the hookup with like the Fountain of Youth down there in Phoenix for a while.
Oh yeah, all
Maybe
the
that
day
was it.
spas.
Yeah.
All the day spas. Why? This is not a national championship question, but why is his name not associated with the Cowboys job at all?
Who?
Cliff.
I think it was at one
I think
point.
it's been tossed out there.
mentioned.
But the latest, do with this what you will, the Shefty tweet, his name wasn't in there. And I'm not trying to get too into that, but we did. So over the weekend, you saw Sark got the extension in Texas and said a couple of teams have reached out. People close to the Cowboys saying they did not reach out. They were not interested in Sark. I'm curious, I'm curious who that might have been. I think the Bears would be an obvious spot.
It wouldn't surprise me
The
if,
Bears interviewed Eddie George, so yeah, they reached out to Sark.
by the way, Sark he's only extended 1 year. It was an excuse to give him a bump in pay, basically. But yeah, they want Sark around for a while. I could see the Cowboys reaching out. I don't know.
I was hoping Mike had some intel he wanted to break here and blow us up.
I don't. I've been deep in portal stuff. I can't even get into coaching stuff. That's too much work for me to do.
Well, I definitely want to talk a little bit of that too. And we mentioned somewhat of the schedule of just being a fan and watching sports, you being in the weeds and having to track all of this. We saw a lot of rumbles, a lot of complaints as soon as the college football playoffs started, and a lot of talk about the timing. And it sounds like that's going to get moved. I mean, hell, they just approved this schedule, in like August of this year?
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as that got announced, it's like either this is killing the Bulls or everybody's going to hate it. And it did both, I think, to a certain extent. People watch the Pop-Tart Bowl, but ask Duke how valuable this timing was to them. You, as somebody who's like invested and has to follow this, I assume you advocate for a shift to January to like one portal window in like late January. Do you think it's practical? Do you think that there's any benefit to the players of moving it, or like what do you feel like would work out best for all parties here?
I think the schools would hate it because they want all those kids in January.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a lot of value to getting a portal transfer in the winter if he's not going through your spring ball and rolling in January. So I think the more likely scenario is moving the high school calendar up and like maybe having those kids sign at the beginning of the fall. And
Yikes.
keeping the portal window where it is. I mean, there is no good scenario. And like, I think people throw all these, hypotheticals out and it's like, there's only 12 months in a year. They can only play the bowl season at a certain time. Like, I mean, at this point, you're just kind of out of room and you just have to deal with the way you do. I mean, I don't know. I thought the bowls were great this year. Like I think if you start to embrace the non-playoff bowl games as like, this is just absurdity. And you're going to see like, some walk-on, some guy for North Texas who hasn't started since he was a freshman on B team at Austin Vandegrift, Like,
That's such a great story.
you just embrace that kind of absurdity and you just have fun with it. Like, it's just something to be on during the holidays.
Look, Texas State didn't have any tape on the guy. Nobody did. Okay. We still won the game.
So, Dave, a couple. I went to San Antonio 2 weeks ago for the Navy All-American Bowl. On the way down, I swung through San Marcos to see my good friend GJ and pick up a hat. Actually, we're taking back Texas.
That's so sick, Dave. You
Nice
need that
with
That's
hat.
a flex.
He's nice with it.
And continue to lobby to get him on this show as well, Dave. Still working on that for you. And it was like the day after the game, and I was like, "Oh, hey, congrats on the bowl win!" And he was like, "That's He was just like, we had no clue who this kid was, anything about him. He was like, that was wild. It's the wildest thing I've ever seen." So,
yeah,
that was tough because I was rooting for Eric Morris, obviously for Texas Tech reasons, but I want to continue seeing GJ's growth and like that program's growth. Like, only good will come of that.
On that front, I texted Mike about this. Your new wide receiver coach at Texas State, former Panther wide receiver coach, correct? Randy Martinez, replacing Chad Morris. Little full circle there.
How about that?
That's a name.
Wait, let me back up here a second. First, for those listening, you're referring to Duncanville Panthers, not Carolina, correct?
Yes.
correct.
I understood that to be true, but I feel like most people hear Panthers and either think Florida or Carolina. And wait, Chad Morris was where? I thought he was at Allen. Did that already change? I completely missed the move.
He was at Allen for a year when Michael Hawkins Jr. was a sophomore.
So like 3 years back. Basically.
Yeah. He's been gone for 3 or 4 years. He left. So the funny story about Chad, and I don't know. I mean, I think I can say this.
Everything after Clemson.
Well, Arkansas was on him about like, hey, you need to get a college job because they could offset whatever the money they had to buy him out with whatever he was making at the college level, which is why Chad went back to high school and was like, I'll make the high school salary and you can keep paying me this, large buyout. And so they kept pressuring him. I think he took like an analyst position at South Florida or something. So whatever that pays. And really, I think there were like threats it was made to go to litigation if he didn't like seriously try to pursue a college job. So I think he ended up at, him and GJ have a pass because Chad was at Tulsa when GJ played at Tulsa. And so, yeah, he was there. And I think he's just taken off to kind of see Chandler play his last year of college. And then I could see him getting back in the game and back to coaching. But yeah, Randy Martinez, shout out Randy. A good friend of mine, a rising star in the coaching industry, has gone from Red Oak High School to an assistant at Duncanville to director of recruiting at Texas State to wide receivers coach at SFA to back to Texas State as the wide receivers coach.
What a ride. Yeah, Chad, I completely forgot Chad was like a passing game coordinator down there in San Marcos. I
missed it altogether. I'm sorry. I was sitting there watching the aforementioned bowl game, because Chandler Morris was previously the quarterback at North Texas, to kind of tie it all back in together. Just thinking that his dad was local, and that's why he went to North Texas after going from TCU. So anyhow, other portal thoughts really quick. As we get to the point where every team is comprised of a significant amount of transfers, not significant, but a dozen, a couple dozen, some teams will be more than that. How do you feel that we'll approach describing players when like discussing where they came from? And then how do you think we'll approach describing teams whenever teams are like significantly comprised of other players from another school? Referring to this because SMU's big percentage of like Miami Hurricane players for obvious reasons. And then I recently saw a post of a player showing up on campus where it's like, former Arkansas starting lineman shows up to day one on campus. And like, at what point do you start like promoting your own program and not like where they came from? So I don't know.
That's so you only promote the other program if it's like enough. You never want to be like, oh, the Kennesaw State guy is coming to Oklahoma. You want to be like this former Texas 5-star is going to Baylor. You know, you gotta do it one way to make sure they know. But yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of panic about it, and I'm just not that panicked. I guess I think if you look at the 4 teams that made the semis, none of them were heavy. You know, they were. I don't know the percentages, probably 85, 90% high school recruited with 10% augmentation from the portal. It's never going to be a thing, I don't think, where you can win at a high level. And I think Florida State showed you that, of just bringing in huge transfer class after huge transfer class. So to me, I would describe probably like players as where they made the biggest impact. Like Quinshon Judkins wins a national championship tonight. He's going to be remembered as a Buckeye, not for the year or two he spent at Ole Miss. You know what I mean? So, in a lot of cases, these are guys who, especially like you bring up SMU. A lot of these Miami guys weren't frontline players from Miami.
Right.
You know, they were rotational guys at best, backups mostly. And now, you know, they're playing at SMU. To me, that's, you know, they're making their impact at SMU. Maybe they would have never made it at Miami. So who knows?
Agreed. On that note regarding like describing them, I think the only, if I have an old man yelling at cloud thought about it is, I mean, you watch more hockey than baseball, but I think we've talked about like being able to track players from high school to college to NFL is one of the big like things that builds the personal attachment to fan bases. And I think that builds high school football in Texas's interest because you can be like, oh, I know where that guy came from, where he went, blah, blah, blah. And so I don't know if it's, you know, we're projecting out somebody as a rookie on their Monday Night Football, how do they intro themselves thing? Like, where do they talk about? But like when you want people to go back and say like, oh, Mike Evans, Texas A&M. And I'm glad that they go to wherever it makes sense for them. I don't care how many schools players go to, but I struggle with like, how do I then say like, oh, this guy from there? And I think the answer is going to end up being this guy from Duncanville or, you know, either where they were last or where they came out of high school.
I mean, purely off the Sunday Night Football intro, though, half those guys don't say their college anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nowadays it's all gone.
I mean, so like, and then, you know, everybody was playing games and doing School of Hard Knocks or whatever 15 years ago. So I definitely get your point. You know, I think that like, and I think you just have to look at it like a condensed pro career, right? And say like, Peyton Manning was great, won a Super Bowl for the Colts and the Broncos. You know, I mean, like you could mention both those teams and really kind of encompass what their career was. Now, I mean, like the wild ones are some of the ones I follow where I've got a kid on his 5th school, and I'm with you. I don't think there should be a limit. We can talk a little socialism on the podcast here, boys. I'm very pro-labor, anti limits on what they can do and how much they can be paid. So I say let them go, but it is like there are red flags. And when you see usually a guy that's at 5 schools, it's for a reason. And if you go back and look at his high school career, you know, guys who were at 4 schools in their high school career, that's a red flag. And you know, we can kind of go back and point to that as maybe that's the reason they didn't work out.
Yeah, I think we'll have to start throwing in, or not we, as if I'm in the same arena. I think we'll have to start including the discussion about like a coaching change was the impetus for this. Like, just like you would if you were hiring somebody. They're like, oh, why'd you take this job versus this job? Like, oh, well, this shut down, or, you know, my boss left. And that's what leads, you know, you were talking about the semifinalists. Sark's been there, Freeman's been there, Ryan Day's been there. Like, there's consistency of those 4. You go back to the first round, that's not the case for, you know, Indiana, for SMU, for one of the other teams. It's not coming to mind. That's not Clemson, but you get where I'm going. Arizona State, exactly. So there you have it.
Man,
my spiel on portal.
Well said. I love sneaking out for a little bathroom break, popping back in, and just hearing some pro labor talk.
I didn't even
I
say
can
a single
kill a
word while
penalty.
you were gone. These guys were just cooking the whole time. It was great. I just sat back and learned a thing or two.
You know how these remote guys go.
Yeah.
Well, you got anything else for the great Mike Roach?
I don't believe so. Always good to see you, though, Mike.
Yeah, anytime, fellas. It's been a while, so anytime you want me to hop on and chat, I'm always happy to do it. If we can work it around my daughter's nap schedule, it's great. So.
Also, be sure to check out Mike's book, The Road to Texas: Incredible Twists and Improbable Turns Along the Texas Longhorns Recruiting Trail. You can purchase that at Amazon.com.
Ooh.
Does that feature Romance Taylor? I ask this every time we talk about the book, but I always bring it back to Romance for some reason. It's just a legendary name.
There are
So
really fun recruiting stories. I'm sure Mike's got a million of them.
Oh yeah, you want an enjoyable. So that All-American Bowl on the Friday of the All-American Bowl, we have the National Underclassmen Combine, where they bring in the best from like the underclass, and they get a chance to compete to get into the game. And it's run by Anthony Williams, who's the father of Aaron Williams, that played at Texas, played for the Bills. And so all he does is just contract like every former Longhorn to come in and coach it. And every year it's like a new staff. In fact, I built the basis of that book off of that combine one year, like just going around asking guys like, hey, will you do this interview? And like got Derek Johnson that way and got like Fozzie Whitaker that way. So this year, and I'm always assigned, like we kind of break up our team as watching individual groups and reporting back on it. I'm always assigned O-line, D-line. And I was told going in, hey, we got a special treat. Our O-line coach this year is Casey Studdard. And so I'm sure Dylan would be interested to observe Casey Studdard coach offensive line.
Absolutely.
For about 4 hours, and the amount of videos I could not tweet out because of the language in them was staggering.
Makes a mean brisket.
Yeah, he's got a little barbecue trailer here in Austin. That's right.
That's what I hear. That's what he was telling me. So I'll need to try it next time I'm down that way. I think I'm going to come down for state track, so that'll be in May. Maybe I can swing by the office.
Absolutely.
Say hi to you guys again.
You're always welcome here.
Would love to pick your brain. Always love when Mike stops by. Where can we follow you?
Mike Roach 247 on Twitter, and I'm supposed to plug my Instagram now. I think that's like a new thing. I think Twitter's for the olds now, so it's Mike_Roach 247 on Instagram.
There you go.
You about to get a new follower. I already followed you. What am I talking about?
Yeah. I think you're on I think you fellas are on my private Instagram, my family Instagram. That's the one I just give out is the work one.
Okay. So. You just got a new work follow. There you go.
Huge.
Yeah, awesome. Tell Brett I said hello.
Will do.
We will.
Thanks, Mike. You're the man.
Thanks, dude.
All right. Thanks, fellas.
There he
Go
goes.
Bills.
Go Bills. We're all riding with the Bills. I'm riding with the Bills. I don't know if I can speak for everybody. Oh, man. Mike's always great. You know what else is great? DraftKings Sportsbook playoffs. We're still talking about playoffs still? Yeah, we are. You bet we are. Get in on the action at the DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Scoring touchdowns is the key to winning in the playoffs. And you could score big by betting on them at DraftKings, the #1 place to bet touchdowns. You ready to place your first bet? Try betting on something simple like a player to score 6. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app and make your pick. New DraftKings customers can bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code WASHED. That's code WASHED for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5 only on DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 8778-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, Kansas, 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction, void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. Are you ready for some football? A Monday night party. It's not. There's no NFL.
There's no NFL tonight.
But it still could be a party.
Yeah.
You can party in other ways.
There's a college game tonight.
There is a
party. It's a party.
Did you see him at the? Oh yeah, you were in
I
that group
sent it
text.
to you.
Why was Waka Flocka at the inauguration?
Why wouldn't he be?
Why were a number of people at the inauguration?
I don't fucking. That's Dylan. You bring up a really good question, man. We got a lot of.
Sorry.
No, it's valid. KJ.
NFL. Let me back up. Let's go back to Saturday. If we want to just do some of those chronologically, can we do that?
We can.
Well, it's
that
for the
work?
boys, but yeah,
Texans.
the 3:30
Chiefs?
Saturday, baby.
I had to
Texans
think
Chiefs.
about like who they played. Yes, Texans Chiefs.
Big day for Mahomes gets all the calls, guys.
That
Big
game,
day.
I know that's like the popular thing to talk about, like, oh, Mahomes gets the calls, but that was a pretty tough game to watch during stretches. Just tough.
So I know you're the Chiefs, and I know you are potentially about to three-peat. You still liking that bye week? Like that team did not look great coming out of the gate. I'm wondering how much is there. I'm just saying the Texans have a great defense.
Yeah.
And they looked much more competent early on.
I think you welcome I mean, it's not like college football where you get like 20 plus days of no football before you have to play again. Having one bye week, I think, to get healthy is always a welcome thing for any team.
They did
True.
rest though, because they had it wrapped up. So I mean, some of their players might have. I'm trying to do the math, but whatever. I won't get there. I agree with Dylan though. Like, I'm taking the bye.
Yeah,
without question.
The juxtaposition. Sorry, KJ. I was going to say the juxtaposition on how that game was called versus what we saw last night. As far as like protecting the quarterback or not protecting the quarterback, it was just bizarre.
My least favorite play was not even one where a penalty was called. It's where Mahomes is running out of bounds and decelerated to initiate contact, and then he flops out of bounds trying to get a flag. It was insufferable, and it was like a couple plays after the very controversial 15-yarder that was called when he was dancing around in traffic and just hit the turf right as he was getting tackled, and of course that one was flagged. It's tough to watch, man. I really do not like it. And he's very rightfully getting called out for this bullshit. Can't stand it.
Yeah, I think in many, I don't have the box score, but like if you just look at the stats and like what like the Texans did, you're like, oh, this is a good day to be a Texans fan. And then, of course, you make the big plays at the right time, and you have Pat Mahomes on your team. You win the game.
Where do you fall in the argument that you got to protect guys like that? Like, oh, well, you can't let Mahomes get knocked out of a game by, an errant hit here and there. He's kind of getting like the MJ treatment a little bit.
If guys like that means every quarterback, I'm fine with it. Like consistency, excuse me. But like, I know it's a different crew, but like, so Lamar doesn't get that? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, but yeah, you can't just do that for one guy. And to be fair, like I don't think that's what cost the Texans the game. I think the Texans were just their offense just isn't as good. They don't have the weapons. They've got guys hurt, and like they haven't looked great all year, like on the offensive side of the ball. But yeah, like just call it consistently across the league. KJ, you had something?
Yeah, I was going to say it's funny to me that like everything about the game comes back to these two roughing the passer calls, and then the one that wasn't called. But then you've got 8 sacks for 60 yards given up if you're the Texans. Now, you could say outside of those 8 sacks, they didn't really do anything to lose the game. They didn't have any picks. They didn't lose any fumbles. They had one fumble, but they didn't lose any, and they got a takeaway. They did recover a fumble. And so they played a sound game. They're well coached. I think DeMeco Ryans like continues to prove himself to be like a tremendous coach, and CJ Stroud continues to prove himself to be a tremendous quarterback. But I don't leave this thinking like, oh, it was the refs against us. Like the refs weren't playing left tackle.
Yeah.
Fix that. Like Chris Jones is a problem. We know it. He's been a problem forever. It's funny to think that the Chiefs ever put themselves in like contract issues or contract negotiation hell with him. But like the impact that like that guy has on the defensive line leads to George Karlaftis having 3 sacks in a game.
Bother up.
Like,
There you go, Randy.
that's true.
There you
Look
go.
at that
You
first
didn't-
round pick out of the Purdue a couple of years back.
When with the Chiefs, you just kind of feel like you know it's gonna. They've got that like you know how this is gonna end effect on games. I'm not even talking about the refs anymore. Like they pull magic out of their ass during these moments, and it's like you just kind of feel it coming. You know that like the Texans may be threatening at the end or insert whatever team here is like they got a chance here. But as long as, the Chiefs have 15 at quarterback and they have just like that like playoff mojo, you just kind of feel like you know how this shit's going to end.
Pulling magic out of your ass is a risky proposition.
I agree. It is.
Depending on what
You
kind
know
of
what I
magic.
mean, though?
Which I would argue, like, unless you're a fan, sometimes for me, that's almost, and zero pun, like almost as deflating of an experience as like having a backup quarterback in who you have no hope about. Like both situations as an observer, you have no hope. Yeah, you're not like hopeful and expecting a comeback, and you're not hopeful and expecting, success if Chad Henne was in there. So I don't know that either situation's fine.
Just he's enjoying his lunch right now, and Chad Henne
When I was at the
catch it straight.
Super Bowl 2017, we were sitting next to Eagles fans. This is Eagles Patriots, for those who don't remember. Of course, it's a game that the Eagles ended up winning. But Patriots got the ball back with like a minute and a half left with a chance to win. And there were Eagles fans. They had the lead. And the Eagles fans sitting next to me. And they were just sitting there like, oh, fuck. Like, we know how this is going to end. Like, Brady's got the ball. And it didn't go that way, but that's like the same effect. It's like with a guy like Mahomes, it's like, oh, God. Well, we strong effort, guys. And then it plays out like you expect it to.
Now realizing it was the quarterback who I guess wasn't playing in that Super Bowl that was backing up Mahomes. It was Carson Wentz, not Chad Henne this year. My bad, Chad.
Carson Wentz.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
right.
Yeah. That was the dreams and nightmares run out for the Eagles, and like the Patriots came out to like Ozzy Osbourne or some shit, like Crazy Train. And I just remember hearing like dreams and nightmares going over to speakers in Minnesota, by the way. And like, holy shit, that team's ready to fight, ready to play.
That's when Dylan hung out with Diddy.
That's right.
Okay.
He did. He got a photo with him.
I know,
Sure did.
like I know, like the day before, whatever NFL experience, right?
We just went to a bar, and it was,
I thought you were
but it
saying
was
party, a nondescript party.
like G-Eazy was performing.
Yeah.
Joel Embiid was there, very, very tall man. And then Diddy just rolls out with his entourage, and we were like, oh, fuck.
That's sick.
Yeah, it was cool. It was fun.
Oh my God. We got to talk commies. Is Will still out there? Yeah, he is. Let's try to keep it down a little bit. It's a little awkward around the office today.
Yeah, I didn't see that game coming. I don't like that.
So I've had this thought, like Detroit, like every week, every week they lose like someone of value, like a relatively important player. Started against the Cowboys.
To injury.
Yeah, you're just kind of like sitting there, like, dude, how do they keep fucking doing this? I mean, obviously they've kept key players on offense, but like you're kind of wondering if that's going to ever come back to.
Finally caught up to him, you think?
Well, they couldn't. Two things: you obviously could not stop Jaden Daniels, and also you got behind and you got maybe a little bit out of your game plan. It seems like not to be a burner, but run the damn ball a little bit. And Goff kind of got exposed, and they didn't make any mistakes. The Commanders, and there you go. That's your ball game.
Yeah, the play by
Go ahead.
the play by Jaden Daniels as a rookie, like with the poise like that, it was very unexpected in a moment like that. The dude's a fucking gamer. He's a baller.
The 2-minute sequence in the second between, I'm just looking at the like box score or whatever, the one-handed Sam Laporta catch. Like you go from like, holy shit, that's incredible to go up 14-10. And then you give up the 60-yard touchdown pass the next drive, and then you throw a pick six the following drive. And you never get quite back in the driver's seat. You score very next drive, 61-yard run, a touchdown, but like that pick six puts you an extra series behind or an extra possession behind. You even get your score coming out of halftime, just like you needed. You made stops in the third quarter, but then you got buried in the fourth. So like that must have been extremely excruciating because completely contrast what we just talked about. Like you had no hope. You were the Lions. You came into the game with hope and it was there and you lost it, but you still believed. You probably still believed. You still believed. And in the fourth quarter, you just get smacked in the face. Even when you should have known like it wasn't your day, you still believed.
Did you catch the Dan Campbell post game?
No.
It's tough to watch a grown alpha man cry. It's tough. You've grown to like Dan. Everybody likes Dan Campbell,
He's
right?
hard man not to like. Yeah.
Yeah, he took the blame for much of it, and I don't know how much of that is accurate, but I think that's what a good coach would do.
Yeah, let them get healthy, get Aiden Hutchinson back on the D line, and they'll probably be a very strong contender again next season, I would imagine, as long as they keep the
2 new coordinators,
key pieces in place. Yeah, new coordinators. That's true.
Yeah. You got to think Ben Johnson's gone. We mentioned him off the top.
might be official now.
Really? More breaking news?
Yeah. Bears finalizing hire of Lions, Ben Johnson. Boom, 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 boom.
There it
14
is.
minutes ago.
Good pull, KJ. Good
Bear
pull.
down.
There you go, Randy.
Chicago Bears. I don't know if this is good or not, but I hope it is.
It's good. I think it's good.
And Aaron Glenn is moving on as well, looks like.
Really?
Most likely. I mean, he spent a week having just as many interviews as Ben Johnson did. I would have probably put him in the top tier for the Saints gig, but then the Mike McCarthy news happened. And I think that's the only thing that kind of threw things out of kilter for a couple of these jobs and just waiting to see when the Lions would be done. So Ben Johnson taking this one is really the first step. Any guesses or bets on who gets these last chairs? We've got the Cowboys open, Saints, Jags, Jets, Raiders.
Looks like Aaron Glenn is about to interview for a second time with the Jets.
Don't do it, Aaron.
Yikes.
I don't like when guys I like
him.
go there.
I like him a lot. I would love to see him in Dallas.
I agree. And there's like a tweet from a couple of days ago from Bleacher Report Gridiron, legit account. Aaron Glenn is a name to watch closely in the Cowboys head coaching search, per Jordan Schultz, which I feel like I don't know. It's hard to tell with these guys.
Made a name for himself this coaching carousel.
There's some guys that like have been like outed as buffoons and just like shills, and I don't know if he's one of them, so I don't want to like roast the man yet. But yeah, it's impossible to tell.
Yeah, it looks like Ben Johnson. I don't know if you mentioned this. I was reading and I missed it. Ben Johnson to Chicago looks like it's a done deal. Okay.
Please credit KJ.
Okay.
Hat tip KJ for breaking that news.
We don't not go in there.
Can I say something about
anyways.
Jaden Daniels? You mentioned like a rookie and his poise and all that. Dude, I fucking look. I know he's an NFC East rival, and I'm gonna hate him for the next like 8 years or whatever. I just see him on the sideline, and he just looks like a dude who is having like. He's not like a hype guy. He just looks like he's having fun and like he's on beta blockers and nothing is bothering him. He doesn't feel anything. It's really like he's not like ice cold Brady on the bench. It's just like nothing is getting into him. It's like he's just on his own planet, which I fucking love that, man. Compare him to Dak, where you've got Dak just kind of that deer in the headlights look that we've seen a few times. But yeah, it's we got an all NFC East NFC Championship, and the most overly quote tweeted stat was the Cowboys now have the longest drought of missing out on the NFC Championship now that the Commanders have made it. So you got that going.
Was it you who were you the one that texted me that Jaden Daniels looked like Ricky Smiley with braids?
No, I have not sent any Ricky Smiley in the morning related tweets, KJ. That's a Very few people are understanding that reference, but no, I did not.
I'll let them Google Jaden Daniels and Ricky Smiley side by side and decide for themselves.
Dude, shut up.
But hey, I'll credit David with that.
Don't
that
credit me with
identification.
that. Credit me with finding Magic Mind. Credit me with that, because Magic Mind's changed the game for me. The performance shot, we've known about that, but how about Magic Mind sleep? Energy without sleep, it's the opposite of productive. Magic Mind sleep helps you fall asleep faster and get a deeper rest. So I like to come into the office, start my day with the original Magic Mind, give me all my productive stuff, bring a new energy to the meetings that we do, Dylan. You know how it is. I like to end my day with the Magic Mind sleep. It's 100% safe. All ingredients are third-party tested, sourced from the best suppliers, and they donate, Magic Mind donates, that is, 5 cents for each bottle sold to mental health charities that help U.S. homeless communities. How about that? It's doctor validated, created with the Scientific Advisory Board of Doctors and medical researchers, in development for 10 plus years and over hundreds of iterations to perfect their formula. And there's over 200 scientific studies behind every ingredient. Man, they sent us some and it went quick. It went real quick. I've been a subscriber for a long time, so I've got some at home. But we're big fans. I use them both in a day, and it helps with my mental performance. I like to do it with my coffee, the morning shot, the productivity shot. It's fantastic. So check this out. Get 45% off the Magic Mind bundle with our link. Go to magicmind.com/TMDJAN. That's magicmind.com/TMDJAN. No risk. They're so confident in what they've built that they'll refund 100%, no questions asked, for 100 days after buying it. Shipped internationally to over 65 countries. It's even in stores. Go to Sprouts, H-E-B, Central Market, and Erewhon. Erewhon, if you're lucky enough to have an Erewhon near you, go there. Check it out. 45% off the Magic Mind bundle, magicmind.com/TMDJAN. You talked about the Mahomes effect on when you just know, like, oh, God, they got the ball and they got time. I had talked myself into that being the case in Rams-Eagles, because I think Stafford is up there with those guys. In that, not saying he's as good as Pat Mahomes or Tom Brady, but I thought yesterday, like a minute 30, the Rams got the ball down 6. I'm feeling pretty good about it, even though it's in the snow. It didn't work out. You got to block that dude up the middle, that Georgia guy. What's his name? Jalen Carter. Good player.
I don't get that feeling with Stafford. I don't know. He's probably, to me, he's on the next tier down from like having like that clutch gene. I don't know.
Yeah, you might be right. Maybe it was more wishful thinking, but I still think I had like devised this take the night before and I'd thrown it out in multiple group texts. I'm like, the Rams are going to win the Super Bowl. Most people didn't pay any attention to that or react to it, but I threw it out there just because I wanted to be early on it, and I thought it looked really good yesterday.
It's tough to watch that game and feel like I can make any judgments on either team. Like Saquon aside, like Saquon is absolutely incredible to get to watch. Like a tremendous amount of fun to see. And not the all-time leading rush record for total yards in a season. That's still SMU's own Eric Dickerson. But watching that and watching the weather deteriorate was like, man, isn't this just tremendous football to see? And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of where nostalgia's a fucking liar. Like we had tremendous football in the Lions Commanders game to a certain extent. And we could have had another absolute banger in that game and to a certain, and maybe the afternoon game or the evening game too. But like, I kept watching that and feeling like I had that confidence in Stafford, and I felt like the snow was going to F it all up. There was a play where he overthrew Puka just a bit, and that probably was a catch and a house call, like on the first play of that drive, and you give it back to the Eagles. So I was pissed off about the weather.
Yeah.
I couldn't really say anything about the players.
I saw a take on Twitter. I forgot who shared this take. They said that because these playoff games are played in January, when it's very cold out and you play in these northern cities, that the weather has too big of an impact on a game of such importance. And I found myself like not hating the take, because it's not like the truest test of like who's a better team. Because I mean, playing on snow is just such a different beast. But then again, if you win home field advantage, you've earned, the game to be at your field, and you play in an outdoor stadium. So it's like you, in theory, have the advantage. So that makes sense, obviously. But I love to watch football in the snow. I really do. I think it's just visually like fucking awesome. But yeah, it's a very different form of football. So it's like, I don't know. I struggle with it, I guess.
Do y'all get excited? Probably not. You don't get excited as I do when they have to like roll out all of their snow weather game, like technology and like random shit they've got to figure out and like tell you about the rules. Cause we learned that players can't wipe off the snow with a towel anymore. That has to be just the 11 men on the field to like clear out a space for the kicker. That they're running like snow blowers out there by hand to like clear off the hash marks and the 20 and 30 yard line for kickoffs, because that's obviously very important to special teams this year. And then you get the superimposed numbers on the field. So it's just funny when they've got to like flip this switch and be like, oh shit, we're ready for snow. And I'm like, it's kind of cool. You get a different game to see.
My favorite image from the weekend is Bill's Jordan Phillips, who wore the full like down ski jacket under his uniform.
How, I don't know. I feel like you're not allowed to do that.
You can. It's just the chafing just does not sound appealing. Like you've worn 2 pairs of socks at some point in time. We all live in Texas. Like you're not equipped with wool socks as you should. So on cold days, your best bet's like, oh, I've got jeans on under my sweats, and you're probably doubling up on socks. Like one of the only cold days of the year you've done it. But that lack of like that lack of friction, I don't know how to describe it. Like your foot doesn't feel stable. I feel like that's what you'd be dealing with a fucking goose down jacket under your shoulder pads.
It just restricts your movement and your extremities too.
It's like, it seems like what like someone unprepared would have worn to a tailgate.
Yeah.
Like their winter coat they've had for 15 years, they're just throwing a jersey on over, and they're like, oh yeah. That's what they sound
like. Do they have to tape up zippers and shit? Like,
great question.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's a mild risk, but probably one that there's a rule for, because you have to tape up earrings and shit.
Can we talk Lamar Jackson?
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
This hurts my heart.
Yeah.
I've said it on this podcast a few times. I love Lamar Jackson. I love his game. He's so much fun to watch. I think he's a likable character. I was sick for him last night. I mean, I know he had a couple turnovers in the first half, and it kind of set them back a bit, but he played well enough down the stretch for them to pull that game out. And for Mark Andrews, tough game for Mark Andrews. Yeah. The fumble late, 8.5, I think, minutes left in the fourth quarter, very crucial. And then, of course, that last drive for the Ravens, when Lamar finds Isaiah Likely for the long. When Lamar starts to evade in the pocket and bounce around, and he's just like impossible to touch, you just feel like something awesome's about to happen, and it typically does. That was an unbelievable play by Lamar Jackson and Isaiah Likely to get open. And then for Andrews to drop that very easy catch for the 2-point conversion to tie it up. You still give Buffalo time, obviously, to go down the field and score, but I feel sick for Lamar Jackson. He's been, he has like that can't win the big game tag on him, which somewhat deserved, somewhat undeserved, I think. I don't know. I hate it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Derrick Henry too.
Say again?
I was just, like everything about like what Dylan just said about Derrick Henry, like add that to the pile of like love the player, love the personality. Nothing that happened yesterday you could put on his shoulders. Granted he didn't have like Saquon-esque impact on the game, 6-yard run type situations. But like to have a year like that, to have moments that he did all year, and he's in the same exact bucket, that's tough to see.
Yeah, the first half turnovers were bad. They were not good. There's some discourse that kind of bothers me when people are like, okay, he had the interception, but that didn't really hurt him. The Bills went 3 and out or whatever. They didn't end up getting points on that. that's still like one less possession, right? You're still giving up on a possession on a drive. But to his credit, that drive that Dylan was talking about was a masterclass. He did enough to get him right there to tie it up. Mark Andrews, dude, what was the stat? He hadn't had like a fumble since in like years. He doesn't fumble, and that's Baylor's own. That's former Baylor great Terrell Bernard.
Back to what we were talking about with these games being played in extreme weather conditions. Does he turn the ball over? Does he fumble that right there? And does he catch that pass? I would probably say, yeah, he does. If it's played in a dome or something, or in
It's
a warm weather environment.
When you see your guy, and it could be your most sure-handed receiver or tight end or any start to kind of stop in the middle of the field and if it's Mark Andrews, not the most athletic guy, go kind of double back a little bit, and all you're worried about is somebody running over. With how many guys are punching balls out, it was right there and it was perfect. And I could tell you, KJ, I'm curious, how much did you work on that? You were a defensive back. Was that something you worked on?
More than I'm trying to quickly say, if there are 10 periods in a practice, it always constituted half a period. And a period might be like an 8-minute block, 15-minute block, depending on the period or who's running the practices. But both at Texas Tech and at SMU, you always had some sort of turnover drill every single practice. And it was one of the few where it didn't matter your position and or rank on the team. You were participating as the person stripping the ball from back, then you pick up the ball, and the next person in line would strip it and take it from you, so on and so forth. And so usually when you have drills, it'd be okay, the ones are doing this, you're the dummy. But every team, every play always would do that. It still is mind-blowing to me to see highlights of Charles Tillman, Peanut Tillman, who was famous for being able to do the peanut punch, always uncomfortably named,
Randy.
knocking out footballs at high speed. Yeah, shut up, Bears. But to see the slow-mo of players doing it even now is never going to be anything short of incredible. And in these high leverage moments too, there's just not much you can do if you're the offensive player. There are very few, okay, now fall and make sure your arm's half an inch more underneath as you're bracing yourself to not break your elbow, collarbone, or, get a yard. It's just strange that there's less emphasis on that part. You're taught to protect the ball while running, taught not to stretch the ball out. But in those moments, you really got to choose between protecting yourself or the ball, and you're always going to protect yourself as you're falling.
On the other side of that coin, Josh Allen. The Bills come out in the second half, didn't look great. Ravens defense didn't adjust. I don't know. They looked so much better than Josh Allen. So I'm sitting here trying to think I don't know how good the Bills are. I don't really know how good the Chiefs are. I mean, you get this again. And I think this, I don't know. What I'm trying to say is I don't feel any different about either of these two guys, Josh or Lamar, than I did before the game. They're still both great players. And I think you're kind of wasting breath if you are, if you're a talking head show and you're somehow ripping Lamar. You know what I mean?
Saying this more damages his legacy.
Yeah.
Let's say this was the AFC title game. It would have been more heartbreaking, but the outcome wouldn't have made you feel disappointed. I don't know. I would have felt the same as you're saying you do, coming out of it. Somebody had to lose. Josh Allen didn't turn the ball over as much, and I guess that says something.
Yeah. Overused stat of the day is the 4 winning teams over the weekend turned the ball over 0 times, which is pretty shocking considering 2 of those games were snow games. You'd think
and 2 of those games were a rookie and a second-year quarterback.
Yeah, great point. That's pretty insane. So that's just a stat that I came up with, man.
Lamar entered the league at a tough time with Mahomes and Josh Allen being both AFC quarterbacks, and I just want him to win one, man.
Are there some guys who were, him coming out of Louisville, like this guy's not a quarterback. Are there some guys that are still hanging on to that, like that are like
Idiots.
Oh, at this point, hopefully not.
I would like to know. I would love to know who the guy who still refuses to amend that take is. That just sees that and is like, see, turns out I was right 7 years ago or whatever it was.
That'd be a terrible take if so.
Yeah.
They're probably the same person that would bring up like his mom being his representative or whatever and saying that was a bad decision. And then you see a second contract and you're like, well, maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was. I don't know. Like, I don't know. We got what? Sorry, I didn't want to step on you there, but the Bills Chiefs, like, I think in all of my excitement about the wins and the losers here, like, the problem is just that the Chiefs, I'm kind of rooting to see a three-peat just to see it. But I'm also very bored with the Chiefs winning. So, like, I'm not excited about the Bills Chiefs, and I don't find myself rooting for Josh Allen because of it. So I don't know.
The thing about the Chiefs, and like I will be rooting for the Bills. Shout out Western New York, but their offense is not as dynamic as it was. So you're watching them, and it's not like when you're watching the Warriors, back in the day, and it's just like fucking. I'm watching some shit I'll never see again. Like this year, it's like they are just getting by.
They feel so gettable, but they just somehow just don't lose. Their defense is playing very well.
Which is really annoying.
Yeah.
Versus like early on when they're doing their shit where you're just like, okay, Mahomes is a fucking witch. Like that kind of stuff. So yeah, it doesn't feel as fun. But
and you've got the most likable coach in the NFL too. That probably helps. Like I don't know who hates McDermott, aside from, families of the fallen, but
okay.
Other than that, like I bet most people are pretty neutral. Andy Reid's pretty likable, and then over on the AFC or NFC, I think we're all going to be DQ and Cliff guys.
Yeah.
And why am I just completely blanking on the other coach here?
Sirianni.
Oh, well,
there you go.
Unquestionably number 4 on likability.
I hate how much I like the Commanders' overall team and the coaching staff. Like
Ken Norton Jr.'s on that team, on that staff. I've always loved seeing him.
I think nothing but good things when I see Ken Norton Jr. Former Cowboy great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So give me Commies Bills. Okay. Fine.
I'd love to see it.
Yeah.
I'd also love to see Commies Chiefs. I'd like to see the Eagles Chiefs. Like I don't care really. But if we see like a Bills back-to-back, like blow this out of the water, I will be in the minority of being like least enthused about the outcome, I will say. I won't root for the Eagles, but
I'm wondering how good Jalen Hurts feels. Because I legit, like if you didn't know it and you just saw that tackle and him with his leg pinned under, like you'd think he tore like multiple things in his knee. And
either knee, like one got tucked under, the other buckled.
I was looking at the right knee, and then I saw the left. The way it was, I was like, dude, are we really? Is this about to be the Kenny Pickett show in the NFC Championship game? But we've seen it before with him, I guess. All right, well, that's all I got.
Shall we run it back? We got a short one. Of course, that's the segment during which we talk about what we already talked about. Corey Moore could be catching passes from Quinn and Eugene next year. He's not, but he could be. The Rams need to scoop Quinn, per Dave. The Cowboys are the NFC team with the longest divisional playoff win drought.
Appearance drought.
Even
worse.
Wow. We love Jordan Phillips in his full goose down ski jacket under his jersey, and that concludes Run It Back this week. A lot of good talk with Mike. Interfered with the usual hijinks of Run It Back.
It's good.
Yeah.
Fun one.
Go check out Mike's book. Go check out Mike on 247 Sports or 247 Sports as he pronounces it. I don't know if he's correct in that. He may just work there. One last quick question for you fellas. If you're on a college campus at LSU a couple years back and you've got Jade Daniels, Angel Reese, Livy Dunn, Paul Skeens, all on campus, who would you say at this point's had the most successful professional career? Obviously, Skeens, Rookie of the Year. Angel Reese won something, ESPYs, Essence, BET Award, I don't know. And Jaden Daniels is now in the NFC Championship and likely Rookie of the Year.
Ooh.
Burrow didn't overlap with them, did he? No, he didn't.
I don't think
2019.
Jaden was there yet, but maybe he might have been a freshman and just not relevant. I don't know.
No, he was at Arizona State back then. I imagine.
Good point. He did
Yeah.
transfer in. Great.
It's Skeens. The way his rookie season was just stupid.
Sub 2 ERA.
He's going to be a very, very rich man for a very long time. I'm going to say Skeens.
0.95 whip.
Strong whip.
Yeah. 11 and
But
3.
I did buy some Vuori pants or something at some point this winter, so like
It's hard to
could
argue
say
with Livy.
Livy's winning too.
Hard to argue with Livy.
Is Livy got the highest net worth?
No. Skeens.
TikTok money. Ooh, TikTok.
Nah.
Anyhow,
All
I
right.
just for some reason was like, damn, you got to think the athletic department at LSU at one point was just brimming
Yeah.
with
Yep.
success.
It's a good run.
Anyhow,
And then they said, here's Brian Kelly. All right. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
bye.